true gifts from the gods. You'll be surprised to know that the Greeks were not so crazy after all. Just wait until you see a real-life Medusa that can end your life just by looking at it. If this is your first time visiting our channel, don't forget to subscribe, and please give this video a big thumbs up. Today we're showing you 10 ancient Greek myths that turned out to be true. The mermaids. In Greek mythology, mermaids and sirens were irresistible sea creatures, half fish and half woman. With the sweetness of their song, they lured sailors to a terrible fate. In Homer's Odyssey, the Greek hero was advised by the sorceress Circe to put wax in his ears so he wouldn't be able to hear their voices. However, he wanted to know if he could resist the temptation, so he tied himself to the mast while the members of his crew were deaf. When he heard the song, he begged them to let him go, but they just waited until they were far away from the sirens instead. And as a man had the strength to escape them, the sirens flung themselves into the water and perished. But Odysseus is not the only one who saw a mermaid. John Smith, better known for meeting Pocahontas, met one too. He described her as a green-haired woman swimming in the water who was by no means unattractive. She dived into the water, and this was when he was shocked to see that she had a tail. Smith is not the only one who claimed that he saw a mermaid, but these men are all missing something: evidence. However, if you want to see real-life mermaids, there are plenty of people out there who want to become one, and you could become a sea creature too if you wanted to. Cyclops. In Greek literature, Cyclops are one-eyed giants who are part of different stories. In Homer's Odyssey, they were portrayed as cannibals who lived in a distant land. When the hero and his men found a cave filled with food, they were quickly surprised by a giant who trapped them and ate many of the men. To make sure that he wouldn't be the next one to end up in his stomach, Odysseus gave him some wine. When the giant was drunk, the hero told him his name was Nobody, made him blind, and heard the Cyclops screaming that nobody heard him. And this is how he got the chance to escape. But once you see a Cyclops in real life, you won't want to run away from it. Just look at this beautiful goat with one eye. No one thought that it would survive. But after a week, this precious creature was still alive and walking on its 4 feet. But this is not the first time that we see something like this. This rare condition is called cyclopia, which is characterized by the brain failing to develop into 2 hemispheres. This is why the skull forms only one eye socket. It can happen in humans too, but unfortunately, there is no happy ending. We believe that ancient Greeks could have seen it in the past and used it as an inspiration for their stories. The Olympics. In ancient times, the Olympics were not only a competition, but they were also associated with a myth. 3,000 years ago, Zeus, the father of the Greek gods, fought and defeated his father for the control of the world. When he won, a temple and a statue were built for him in the valley called Olympia. His son Heracles then decided to become the founder of the games and the religious festivals in the city in his honor. Held every 4 years during the summer, male citizens from everywhere in Greece came to the city to face the competition in the most popular games in the country. At that time, the foot race was the only event. But over the decades, more activities were added like wrestling, the pentathlon, and the javelin throw. One funny thing to know is that the men were competing naked at that time, and there was nothing to be ashamed of. But a lot of things have changed since then, including the clothes. The Olympic Games disappeared in the middle of the 2nd century BC when Greece lost its independence to Rome. But they came back centuries later when Pierre de Coubertin decided to revive the Olympic Games in 1896. Since that day, athletes from all around the world are competing in what has become the most popular games in human history. Icarus. Men have always wanted to fly, and this is probably what inspired this myth. Icarus was the son of a man who created the labyrinth that was used to trap the Minotaur, but to keep this secret safe, he and his father were imprisoned in a tower above King Minos' palace. The 2 men found a way to escape by creating 2 sets of wings that were made with feathers glued together with wax. They were surprisingly able to fly away, but Icarus didn't listen to his father when he told him not to fly too high. This is how the sun melted the wax and Icarus fell into the sea. We now know that this story is impossible, but not for the reason that you might think. The sun is so far that flying a little higher can't do any damage to the wings, unless someone finds a way to fly up into space. But when it comes to flying with wings, a man recently proved that it was possible. Jetman Eve Rossi loves flying in the sky in Dubai like a superhero at a speed of up to 125 miles per hour. We still can't believe that he found a way to realize every man's dream. And this time, we're pretty sure that the 7-foot wings fixed to his back won't melt. Prophecies. When you can't understand something, you find meaning anywhere around you, and this is where these strange myths come from. Greeks relied on oracles to make important decisions, and also used the science of omens to read the future. But one of the most important things anyone could learn from was their dreams, which they believed was a message sent from the gods. There were 3 types of dreams that could be significant. Some of them were a literal vision of what could occur, others required symbolic interpretation, and the last ones were a visit from friends, ghosts, or even gods. Homer's Odyssey was a great example of this, as Penelope dreamed of an eagle getting rid of 50 geese while she was waiting for her husband to return home from war. She later realized that it was symbolic of Odysseus coming back after getting rid of the suitors. But what about dreams nowadays? We still don't really understand them, but many people think that they actually have a meaning. They won't tell you what will happen next week, but they can use your past to make you move forward in the future. For example, if you experience trauma, you will probably have dreams associated with it. By getting used to this source of stress, you will feel better when you experience something similar. And that's why any reason is good to have a good night of sleep. The Trojan Horse. If you thought that this adventure was part of history, you'll be disappointed to hear that it is mostly a myth. In Homer's poem The Iliad, Prince Paris of Troy stole Helen from her husband, King Menelaus. This is why he decided to besiege the city for 10 years, hoping to get her back. After many heroes had passed away, they knew that they had to find a better way to win the war. They gave the Trojans a giant wooden horse as an offering to the goddess Athena. The Trojans dragged the horse within Troy, but they weren't prepared for what was going to happen next. They were attacked by the men hiding in the horse, and this is how the Greek warriors won the war. However, even though evidence shows that Troy did burn down during the war, there is no proof that the giant horse ever existed. Homer wrote the poem several hundred years after the war took place, so it was impossible for him to know what really happened. No matter what, the myth is so popular that we still talk about the Trojan horse nowadays. But in the 21st century, it now means something else. This is now what we call computer codes that look like legitimate applications, but that are actually used to steal personal information. Who knew that the Trojan War was still happening nowadays? Oedipus. This is probably one of the most famous tragedies of all time, and we're still reading it thousands of years after. In this story, an oracle told King Laius and his wife Jocasta that their son was a threat, so they decided to give him away. Oedipus never met his parents and was raised by a shepherd. When an oracle told him that he was going to do something terrible to his parents, he decided to leave his family, not knowing that he was actually adopted. This is what didn't stop him from accidentally getting rid of his biological father, defeating the Sphinx, marrying his mother, and becoming king of Thebes. All the prophecies were true after all, and when Oedipus realized what happened, we didn't have the chance to see a happy ending, which is probably why it's called a tragedy. This story was so popular that the name of the hero is still used today in modern psychology. The Oedipus complex describes a young boy who falls in love with his mother, but can't stand his father. Sigmund Freud thought that it was a crucial stage in the normal development process of a child, around the age of 3 or 5. Not everyone agrees with this theory, but this is still proof that we won't be forgetting what happened thousands of years ago. Scylla. In Ovid's Metamorphosis, this character was believed to be a beautiful woman. A man fell in love with her and asked Circe for a love potion to win her. The sorceress fell in love with him and decided to turn Scylla into a monster to get rid of the competition. In Homer's Odyssey, Scylla was an immortal and irresistible sea monster, with 12 feet and 6 heads with a triple row of shark-like teeth. She ate anything that stood in her way, including 6 of Odysseus's men. It didn't take too long for the hero to navigate past her, and this memory will probably stay in his head forever. But did you know that you can still see monsters like this in real life? They don't have 6 heads, but we think that 2 is already really impressive. The 2-headed snake shares one body, but they both have different personalities. One is more aggressive than the other, and even physically attacks the other head. Polycephaly is the biological term for having many heads. It is rare in humans, but it is more common among reptiles. Aristotle even found one in 350 BC, so it is possible that Homer used it as an inspiration. So yes, you might see a 2-headed monster one day if you're lucky, but we don't think that it's going to eat you. The music. Humans have been interested in beautiful sounds since they have been able to recreate them. And in ancient Greece, they even thought that it was a gift from the gods. Muses were entertaining the gods with their singing, dancing, and music. Dionysus, the god of wine, was associated with this art, and the invention of many instruments was also attributed to different gods. Most Greeks knew how to play music, which was used as a way to worship the ancient gods. This is why philosophers started studying music, and the followers of Pythagoras even believed that it was a mathematical expression of the cosmic order. At that time, people thought that music could even cure mental and physical illnesses. They also believed that it could have an emotional and moral effect on the listener and their soul. This is why some instruments were banned, and complicated rhythms and music were considered morally dangerous to anyone who listened to it. And it's in the 21st century that we can finally say they were right. Music can actually improve our health in many ways. It can reduce stress and anxiety, improve memory, decrease pain, improve immune functioning, and help us exercise. But don't worry, we won't ban it anytime soon. If music is really a gift from the gods, we want to use it as much as we can. Medusa. This creature was one of the most terrifying women who ever existed. She wore snakes on her head as a punishment from goddess Athena. Medusa was so hideous that anyone who looked at her would be turned into stones. It seemed impossible to stop her, and this is why Polydectes asked Perseus to come back with her head, thinking that he would easily get rid of him. The hero was finally able to do it by using a reflective bronze shield that Athena gave to him. Perseus then escaped, and when he came back home, he used Medusa's head to turn Polydectes and his court into stone. You might think that this story is nothing but a myth, and don't worry, we won't show you a woman with snakes on her head, but you will be surprised to learn that something can actually end your life just by looking at it. It is the Chernobyl's elephant's foot, also nicknamed the real-life Medusa. After a disaster in the nuclear power plant in 1986, the core of the reactor began to melt and created a lava-like substance that was called the elephant's foot for its wrinkled appearance. The radiation level was so high that anyone who looked at it for more than 300 seconds would pass away 2 days later, and this substance will stay radioactive for the next 100,000 years. When we think about this, we think that we prefer a woman with snakes on her head. What is your favorite story from Greek mythology? Don't be shy to tell us what it is in the comments section down below. And that's it for 10 ancient Greek myths that turned out to be true. For more stories like this,